Hey gamers, welcome to a new video. Now that Guilty Gear Dual Rulers has finished, I do want to discuss my thoughts on the anime and Unika as a character. Obviously, every time you hear about a video game adaptation being an anime, you always want to go in with like skepticism, like, oh, is this gonna be like a cash grab? Is it gonna be shitty? Like, there's not a good track record of these adaptations really panning out. The only one that was really good was the Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I think that's the only one that really stood the test of time and is actually a very solid anime. Like it can stand on its own. You don't need to play the game to enjoy it. It's a great anime. And then you have like slop like Devil May Cry, the Castlevania animes. Like I'd argue the first two Castlevania seasons were fine, but after that it just went off the cliff. But those are just slop anyway. So it's like you're either gonna where was this gonna land? But I went with low expectations anyway. But it was kind of funny when they announced this anime and people saw all this promotional material. I saw this one theory that, in hindsight, it was pretty funny because they showed the render of Unika, the anime Unika. They showed that, and everyone was like they put it next to a picture of Justice, and like one of these renders of Justice, and it was like, look at this. Now, at the time, I think the people who were going with this theory were saying this is like grasping at straws, this could be a stretch or whatever. But they're like, there has to be something related. Like, Unika might be related to Justice in some way. The only wrench being that all we knew of Unika at the time was that she's a mysterious character. Nobody knows where she came from. And that she hates gears. And everyone's like, well, she can't be related to Justice if she hates gears. Like, that doesn't really make much sense, basically. But in hindsight, the theory, it's kind of funny to look back at that theory. So, you had that. Then you have the main cast. So they announced, like, it's gonna have Soul Bad Guy, Jacko, Kai, Dizzy, Sin. Like, the obvious main listers are here. Then you have, like, Elfelt and Ram. And I'm thinking, like, okay, this is kind of typical. Like, Elfelt and Ram are basically, like, kind of tied to Dizzy and Kai, basically. They're, like, the adoptive family, right? So I'm thinking, like, okay, of course these characters make sense. But then they show, like, Biken and Johnny. And these two characters, I was like, they're gonna use these two characters? Like, I was very curious to see how they were gonna, like, work in the anime. Like, I was open to the idea of having these two characters in the anime, but there was a part of me that was thinking, like, oh, this might just be a cash grab. Like, I know that there's a meme with Biken because, oh, she has big boobs and this, that, but Biken does have a very, like, good connection to the story of Guilty Gear. Like, her whole revenge plotline ties to the main antagonist of Guilty Gear, which is Happy Chaos. Like, she lost her family, she lost her eye, she lost her arm, like, because of that. Like, because of all this stuff that Happy Chaos was doing. Like, it all, like, so she's tied to the story pretty well. More so than Johnny, in my opinion. Like, not that Johnny's a bad character, but all that Johnny really contributes is, he formed the Jellyfish Pirates, which is, May. He is an adoptive father to all these kids that he took in to form that Jellyfish Pirates, and he has a ship. Like, that's kind of it for him. Like, not that it's bad. Like, I think Johnny works as a singular character in the scheme of things, and that's fine. And as I said, like, I was open to having him in because the only way you could make a character more relevant to the story is to incorporate them more into the story. So I was open to the idea of having Johnny be involved with this anime, but I couldn't just help thinking, like, yeah, this might just be like, hey, we should include Biken, and we should include Johnny. I mean, these two characters are, like, kind of fan favorites. Johnny is a cool character. He can win a lot of people over because of how cool he is. So I was just kind of like, I don't know about this. And then you have the two new characters, Unika. I loved Unika's design. I was on the ground floor with Unika. I was there day one. I was like, this character looks pretty sick. I'm curious to see what's gonna happen with her. Then you have Nerval. Now, Nerval is the most obvious villain. Like, you see this character and you already know what his whole role is. Like, he's gonna pretend to be a good guy, but then he's gonna be the villain. However, I will say, to the anime's credit, the anime doesn't it doesn't pretend. It doesn't pretend like, is he bad or is he good? Like, the anime is like, yeah, he's the bad guy. Just accept that, okay? Right? Move on. So, that's fine. Like, as long as the anime doesn't like jerk me around about that, I can like let it slide. And this anime is also 8 episodes long. Now that's not very long, so with that, I was thinking like, yeah, they're probably gonna make this a very simple villain because it's 8 episodes. Like, you don't want to have like a complex villain and then try to make him empathetic within 8 episodes. Like, that wouldn't work very well at all. So, those were like some of the red flags I had going in, but I was like, well, you know what? If it's an average story at best, that's probably the best case scenario for this, and that's fine. I think uh that should be the minimum that any show should aspire to be, is just average. If that's the worst thing that people think of is you're just average, then that's pretty good, all things considered. Uh, so the anime starts, and I talked about, I think, the first 2 episodes, but just to like kind of reiterate my thoughts now that I've seen the whole thing, it I thought it started pretty well. You have a typical setup, like, okay, you have a wedding, and then Unica shows up and interrupts the wedding, and it goes on from there. But I do think that you know it does a good job at least introducing the idea, through Sin's perspective at least, that hey, there might be more going on with Unica. Like, it's not just, hey, she's bad, let's get her. It's just like, we should talk about like, why is she doing this and this and that. Like, that's a big theme of this anime, is that why not just talk it out? Why we don't need to fight and this and that. And that's reinforced more and more as the show goes on. And they show Unica as like a very like one note character at first. Like, oh, she just hates gears. Oh, we must rise up against the gears to prevent the Second Crusade and this and that. But the other aspect of this anime I do want to bring up is, as much as this anime like lived up to my expectations, it also has done weird stuff that exceeded my expectations in other ways, to the point where you can look at this anime as cynical as you want, like, oh, this is just to make money. But a lot of the art direction and stuff that they've done in the anime, to me, convinced me that at least the people who worked on it had a passion. Like, they had a vision for what they want to do with some of the scenes. Like, I talked about this before. The transition where like Kai is looking at Unica like, oh, whatever, and then it has this weird transition of like Unica's face like kind of like folding in, is so it was such a weird choice that I just loved it. It's like, no other I don't think any other show would have a transition like that, or even try it. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, the fact that they did that, it's like, and it looked cool. That's great. It just looked so cool. I was all for it. Uh, some of the motion stuff in the animation was pretty good as well. Like, when she was on that screen yelling about how we must hate gears, and she wants to prevent the Second Crusade or whatever. It was kind of cool looking at that, because it was very like angry and like passionate in that monologue. Like, it kind of had a lot of energy carrying that. The animation, as well, as I said, like the first half, especially the first half, it looked pretty wonky at times, and that's kind of what I expected with this animation. Like, I'm not a huge fan of 3D animation when it comes to that. Not that you can't have good animation. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of good shows and movies that are done in 3D, but it's just, it runs a lot of the risk of like just looking floaty or weird. and I understood with this they wanted to kind of keep it in line with the game a little bit. Like they probably would just want to have it kind of look the same, like to keep it a little more unified. Uh, but the first few episodes, it looked like some scenes you could tell like okay they tried on this one, but then here it's like yeah, just put this out, it's fine. Cut some corners. So I was kind of like, whatever. I mean, I can look past some stuff if there's enough for me to like appreciate. Like again, weird transitions, uh, and interesting artistic styles and stuff like that. I can kind of like I can forgive that because a lot of the beginning was a lot of exposition dumping that was done probably for people who've never played Guilty Gear before. And that I've seen a lot of people say that bogged down the pacing. I understood that, and I do think that there could have been something that they didn't need to go into. Like I don't know, did people really need to know what a gear is? Like I think it's pretty self-explanatory when you have Nerval talking to Dizzy like, "Oh, well, you're just a weapon, and you're a defective one, probably." Like that kind of explains to you already what a gear is. Like, do we need like a person saying, "Well, do you know gears are this and this and that?" Like, some of that I didn't feel like it needed to be that explained. But I appreciate the explanation in some cases. There's some stuff that even I may not know fully, and the anime did kind of like, jog me up on some stuff. So that's fine. I didn't truly hate it, but I also understood that it could have bogged it down a little bit. Uh, but in those segments, they had these cool still images that just looked cool. Like honestly, like you had that one image of Soul Bad Guy where I think he had his arm up, where he was talking about how he was the flame of corruption. I thought that was cool. I was like, that's a cool image. Like again, I can look past a lot of the exposition dumping and this that if you show something cool, that's all. Just show something cool and I'm there. Uh, so it has stuff like that is whatever, but then you get to like the last half of the anime and that's really kind of where I feel the budget went. Like that's where all the budget went to, and that's probably the best thing to do. Well, like if you're animating anything, you want to have the climactic part of the story be the part that looks the best. Sure, you could argue, well, you wanted the beginning to look good so that people can watch it, but I think if word of mouth is, well, the climactic part looks good, you're gonna sit through all of that to get to that because the climactic part is the big piece of the story. In Guilty Gear's anime. So the episodes went on. I liked that it incorporated that Sin is half gear himself. Like he's the daughter. He is the son of Dizzy and Kai, and Dizzy's the daughter of Justice, which was a gear, this and that. So like it was nice to see some like weight put into that. Like, oh yeah, like he is a command type gear, and he could actually command gears if he forces that, or if he wanted to. And I like that they did that multiple times where they showed them doing gear stuff. I feel like, I was watching Strive Story, and Strive Story is pretty good, but it's also obvious that this is kind of like the uh, finality of the games in some cases. Not that I don't think that you can't tell any more stories in the lore of Guilty Gear, but as far as everything's concerned, it was like wrapping stuff up. Like it wrapped up Soul's arc, it wrapped up Jacko's arc in a way, whatever. But there wasn't a lot of gear stuff in it. Like there wasn't really much of a focus on that. As much as the only focus is basically Kai saying that, oh yeah, my relationship with Dizzy is a taboo. Like nobody like can accept the fact that I'm marrying a gear. Like but that's kind of it. And here it kind of like shows, hey, Gears did fuck up the world at one point in Guilty Gear. Like, this is what the Crusades were all about. And I kind of liked that, after Sin, like, triggers the gear to awaken and do shit, and Johnny was telling him, like, he was like, at that point, it's like, Sin wasn't there during the Crusades. He doesn't know really what these gears represent to people. Like, there's a reason why people don't like gears and why they view Kai and Dizzy's thing as a whole taboo. Like part of Sin's character is that he didn't like Kai because he didn't like his dad because uh he thought that him not being like forthcoming and like owning that he wants to, he's in love with a gear, and he has a family with gears and this and that, like he didn't like him for that. And I think with by the time he got to the to Strive's story, like I think they reconciled that. Like it was like, okay, now like Kai is willing to show to the world that, yeah, I'm married to a gear, like this and that. Like that's kind of like what Strive storyline also kind of like addresses in like just in dialogue. So I do like that it kind of shows like, yeah, this is why people didn't like gears, and it showed that with like Sin not knowing that and not understanding that fully, and that goes into the whole thing where it's like, yeah, you want to talk to Unika, sure, but you also have to understand like Unika's coming from a place of like understandable hatred. Like, a lot of people lost their lives in the Crusades by gears. Like, this is not a thing that you can just kind of like put a band-aid on and like wish away. Like, as much as there's a lot of like hatred towards gears that's unjustified, but you have to understand where that's coming from as well. Like, it deals with that like in a very pivotal way, which is really really good. And just by having that, which is what that one of the aspects of Johnny that they try to use, which I think is good. Like again, I think there was an attempt to make Johnny more plot relevant, and I think that's fine. But you also can't help but think that you could have just taken Johnny out and replaced with anyone else and have that same kind of dialogue. Like Soul could have told Sin that just as much as Johnny could have. Like, there's all this kind of stuff that could have that could have been there that's not Johnny. Uh, and that's the other issue with Biken as well. Like, between Johnny and Biken, the running criticism of these two characters is that these are like shoehorned characters. Like these characters were forced in, and a lot of people didn't like how they used Biken's character because some people were saying that retconned her arcade story in Strive, and I can see that. But at the same time, you watched another story, like she did take a contract from basically from Anji, so that's a little bit different, I guess. But I can see you're taking just contracts regardless. She's like just kind of a wandering samurai. But I do agree. I do see where people are coming from. I do think so. I think less so of Biken being a forced character than Johnny. I think Johnny was a little bit more forced than she was, because like what point did he have? Like, he's just kind of there just to bond with Sin and to reinforce, like, hey, talk it out with Unika, remember this and this and that. But again, that could have been anyone else to tell him that. I mean, Dr. Paradigm, a character that has not been super relevant since, like, Overture, he was an Exard, so, I mean, that's not really fair to erase Paradigm completely, but he had a little bit more plot relevance than Johnny did, just comparatively speaking, and he showed up, like, halfway through and then was just there to talk, basically. But again, like, not that Johnny is a bad character, but I don't, like, he didn't need to be in it. And then you have, like, Ram and Alpha, which, I wanted to see more stuff with them, and I want to see them interact more with Jacko as well. I want to see more interactions with these characters. And I was kind of disappointed that, like, they just kind of put them in a room. It's like, yeah, this is where you're gonna be forever. Like, yeah, okay, Ram and Alpha, just protect Kai and Dizzy, which I don't understand why. Like, they were frozen in ice. Like, why were there secret soldiers, whatever, showing up to unfreeze them or whatever? Like, I guess the idea would have been that they wanted to free Dizzy because she was infected by the virus that Nerval was giving to all the gears, so that it can move forward the Second Crusade, I guess. But even then, it's like, I feel like that, he could have just ignored that because he had what he got with, like, Unica and Sin as it is. Like, he didn't need Dizzy as well to do that, because that was already kind of happening with those two characters, but whatever. So it didn't really make much sense why to lock them in a room like that. Then they had Alpha, like, go to a lab to see what was going on. And then that was it. Like, there really wasn't anything useful between those two characters, and it's kind of a shame because these were cool characters that had more plot relevance than Johnny and Biken, and they were severely underutilized. He also did not bring in Giovanna and all this stuff, but again, I think a lot of this stuff was a victim of it being 8 episodes. If it was longer, maybe they would have had more time to do this. I do think and wonder if this anime was just kind of like a test run in many ways of, is there demand for an anime? Like, would people actually watch this anime? Like, if we, because I mean, animation is not cheap. Like, it is a very costly venture, and I don't think they would want to like put money in an anime and then like lose money, and then it's like, well, So I do think that at the very least, they probably wanted to test the waters with a very solid 8 episode run. So, I can forgive some of the stuff. It's a shame that like the time with Johnny and Biking could have been used with any other character, and it would have been maybe better. But whatever. Like, I appreciate the attempt with these two characters. It's just with Johnny specifically, I think you could have just could have replaced him with anyone else. Like, Ram could have told Sin that, Alpha could have told Sin that, Soul could have told Sin what Johnny told him. Like, whatever. I did like the dynamic that they showed with Jacko and Soul. Like, you saw a little bit more of their home life, which I liked, because it's like, how do they play off each other? You saw a little bit of that in the Strive storyline, and you see that better here because you see them cooking and they talk about how they cook and all this stuff. So it's cool. It's nice. Uh, and then you get to like the later half, the climactic part where everything pays off, the animation pays off bigly. I do like. So I also remember talking about character usage. They bring up Bridget, which everyone like, everyone is already like, there's a lot of hate for Bridget, both, uh, you know, whatever. People hate Bridget for multiple reasons. I'll just leave it at that. Like, there's a lot of reasons that people hate Bridget. Because a lot of people also think that Bridget is just this money making icon from Arc System, because they keep promoting a lot of Bridget figures and this and that. Like, and I get that on that kind of level, but it's like, whatever. She's a Guilty Gear character, so like, why not use Bridget, right? Like, you're using Johnny, why not use Bridget? And I would argue they did a good job utilizing Bridget as a character, because you have she's a traveling bounty hunter to begin with. So people are like, why was she at the U.S.? Why was she in the U.S.? Why didn't we see her do a roadshow? It's like, this is the character. Like, even let's say that all Bridget showed up for one episode. I don't think that was a bad use of her, because she is a traveling character. She does street performances, and she hunts for bounties. Like, why wouldn't she be there? Like, she could have been there by happenstance, or she could have just figured, well, maybe Unika's gonna be there. I mean, there's a bounty on her. Maybe I could get some money on that. Whatever. Like, it makes sense for her to be there. I didn't really quite get why people are like, I can't believe they put Bridget there. Huh? It's like, I don't know. It made sense why she was there. Like, she's doing a street performance. Uh, but they used her in other ways that I thought was great. Like, she was kind of like because Sin kept talking to Unica saying like, oh, you don't have to go this on your own. We can help, and and all of this stuff. Like, you don't have to carry this weight by yourself. And after that, she meets with Bridget, and then Bridget kind of like enforces the idea of like, hey, you should really find yourself. Like, I didn't find myself until I left home. I traveled the world, and I kind of felt more comfortable with how I was like being who I am, and I found my shape. I found myself, and this and that, which is like, look, a really cool moment. Like, I like these interpersonal discoveries that people have in a lot of stories. So you have that with Unica, where Unica's realizing like, yeah, I should find myself, and you start seeing her like she starts having some reservations on what she's been doing. Like, oh, am, is this the right thing to do? Like, rile people up and just do all this stuff. Like, is this right? Like, so I do like that both Sin and Bridget kind of made the Unica like kind of like think a little bit more than and realizing that maybe what she's been told all these years is a lie. And I like that it's Sin and Bridget that was the vehicle for that. And then you have the showdown between Nerval, Sin, and then Unika's there. And Unika's like, "Are you sure?" And then by that point, it's revealed. Nerval says like, "Oh yeah, you guys are gears. I don't need you, Unica. You're a gear too because you're actually Dizzy's daughter from the future or whatever." So it's like, which I thought, I don't know what it is, and I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. I just think it's kind of funny, I guess, where it's like, because in my mind I vision that like Dizzy like laid the egg, Unica's egg, like she just laid it, then she left it to do like gear things because they said that because he said Dizzy laid that egg like right before or just like at the beginning of the Second Crusade or whatever, and then she went berserk. So it's like uh I just thought that was funny. Like I don't know. I guess I just pictured like you see a bird like have a nest and the bird just leaves and the birds hatch whatever. I don't know. I just thought that was funny. I guess I pictured like a bird's nest that Disney made to lay the egg. I don't know. I don't know why. I just thought that was kind of like funny. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but he mentioned that like she's their daughter, like she's Sin's sister from the future. So I thought that was cool. I like that. So I do like that aspect of that lore that she's actually like a relative of the Kisuke family, but like she didn't know because she was born and she didn't know her birth parents were because Nerval like groomed her to hate gears basically, and then after that like you see like the other thing that I thought was kind of funny. So future Nerval shows up and this part was cool. I like future Nerval's design where he has these little horns and stuff. Like this is where I was like, okay, this is a good design. Like they had a terrible design for Nerval initially, and then this they won me over. And I kind of like that he ate the past Nerval. Like, well, you can't, two of us can't coexist, and he just eats the other Nerval. I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. I don't mind goofy shit like that. Uh, but then they show his like other form, which is like a purple monster. Now, they could have done something cool, but I never liked the design where the main bad guy is a goofy looking guy. I never liked that. The moment you do that, you kind of lose me. So I was like, oh, nah, okay. Like I was already out of it. It's like I was there for that design, and then you showed this other design, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not, I don't care anymore. But then they won me over again with the tentacle monster thing that showed up from the sky. That I was kind of like, okay, that's a little cool again. That kind of won me over a little bit. Like, oh, it's this interdimensional beast. So that kind of was kind of cool. And you see them all riling up to face off with this. Now, this is another aspect I've seen some people criticize, and I kind of see where they're coming from. I'm sorry if you're hearing the wind. It's very windy today, so deal with it. Sorry, but I I do feel that like this scene where everyone's coming together. Oh, you have all these characters showing up, and it's this big hype moment. It's like kind of this moment in Gurren Lagann where you have everyone like kind of coming together to form to save Nia in Gurren Lagann. It's a big epic moment, and you have that in Guilty Gear, but you it's since it's 8 episodes, it's like okay, like you're not really feeling the hype. Uh, and I get it. Like, you know, the reason why I worked in Gurren Lagann, you had like 20 episodes, 20 some episodes of like bonding with these characters. Like you were there when they were kids. You saw them like fight the Spiral King, and then you see them go and fighting into this intergalactic dimensional fight, whatever. This is an 8 episode run, so like you're seeing this, and you're like, you know what they're going for, but you're not feeling it, and that's not. I wouldn't say that's on a whole bad, but it's like it's just more of like I wish this was longer. 8 episodes is kind of that's insanely short. for an anime. Like I've seen 12 episodes. I like 8 episodes. I don't think I've seen an anime that's 8 episodes long. Like that's why I was like when I read that I was like, oh, I think this is just gonna be like this could be a slight cash grab. Like this is like the Devil May Cry anime, not the shitty one, the one that came out when Devil May Cry 4 came out. That was like they gave that entire anime I think, uh, as a pre-order bonus. I think, or they do either maybe they gave you the first 4 episodes. I don't remember it now. Now I think about it, I don't remember. But they gave you a good amount, and that was also a short run anime. But this was like 8 episodes long, and but I was thinking at the same time, I feel like for this kind of story, it might have just been in the best interest for it to be 8 episodes. Like, sure, it's a fast moving story, and people may not like that, but I would much rather have a story that's short and concise and like straightforward than a mess of a story. So I thought the anime in of itself was great in what it set out to do. I loved a lot of the decisions it made. Uh, I I I love the final fight. Like it is the weirdest. Again, I would not expect like if an animation studio that whatever is like we're gonna do this weird thing. No, I don't think any studio head anyone would say do it. Yeah, no, they would say like no, no, no. They need a fight. Put a fight. What they went with, it's so weird. Like I to compare like okay, I'll just say what it is, right? So Sin goes into this interdimensional rift to save Unika because Unika like was fully going against Nerval at this point because whatever. And then she saw Bridget being damaged and Unika's like, oh fuck this guy, and so Unika went off to kill Nerval, whatever, right? It was a good scene. I will say that scene where Bridget is like on the gurney and they like wheel her in and Unika sees that was a well shot scene. Like it was a black and white scene. It was like a stage play almost, where it's just like it was great. Like you feel the emotional weight with that scene. It was so good. It was such a beautiful scene that conveyed the emotions that were going on. Like it was a pretty cool scene. I like some sentimental shit, but she gets captured by Nerval, and then like Sin goes in to save her, and then he saves her, but then like they're in this like void, and you see these weird like faces and faces eating each other faces, or faces like peeling another face off. It was so weird, and they were just like standing in a void. Like comparatively speaking, uh I remember I took my friend to see Ava Rebuild 3.0 plus 1.0. Now, he did not see any Ava shit. He didn't see the show, he didn't see the other Rebuild movies, but he wanted to see this because he just wanted to see, like, whatever, right? So he watched it, and they were in that weird, like, space where, like, Gendo is telling Shinji, like, oh, this is, like, where reality meets fantasy or whatever the fuck. Like, you see that floating cross or whatever. Like, it's this weird shit. And we leave and it's like, what was that? Like, where was this? Like, that kind of thing is what happened in Guilty Gear. And I was like, and that I loved. I don't care if someone says, yeah, but Theo, like, it didn't make sense. Like, where is that? Like, and at least in Ava, they told you where that is. They don't like, what is this? I don't care. Like, when you have cool shit like that, like, and people summarize it as just hype and aura moments. And that's fine. I think there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. If you're on board with that kind of stuff and all that, hey, just do it. Fuck it. I would much rather have that than like just like I talk about that 2007 Devil May Cry anime, and I still am bummed when you get to the final episode and it's just the final showdown. It's just the guy just recycling animation of him like crawling back, doing this basically just on repeat, and then like you just see Dante's eye turn red, and like that's the devil trigger. Like I always thought that was disappointing and not rewarding, not satisfying for what it was building to. This at least was like it was building to something, and it was weird, and there was still some cool moments in it, and that is way better because these weird decisions, in my opinion, are gonna be what people remember, and I think that's fine. Like if you're gonna go off like a year later and talk about, yeah, that final scene is so weird. Like I'm still thinking about it. I'm still thinking about that weird scene transition where Unika's face like slot like folds over Kai. Like that's weird. And I think about that because it's a cool ass transition. Like there's a lot of stuff that like is just weird and cool, and I would much rather have that than, yeah, let's just keep it safe and clean and straightforward that everyone can expect. Like I like that this took risks in other areas that otherwise I feel nobody would do. Like nobody would do these transitions and they say, "What are you doing? That's weird. Don't do that." And instead, it's like it kind of leaned in on that, and I think you know maybe they did that because they knew that this was just gonna be a very like average, straightforward show. And so like, hey, let's just do some weird stuff and just throw that in, and like that'll be something. Uh, so I liked the final climax. It was so well done, and then you have the ending where it was just like Kill la Kill, where you have like Mako, not Mako. Oh my god, excuse me, Ryuko falling from the sky, and all this stuff. You have Unika and Sin falling, and at this point, I was very nervous because they introduced that Unico is from the future. It was from the future and all this stuff. Now I said this before, like I understood that Guilty has done time travel bullshit in the past. There's been stuff like that, but I was like, well, I don't know how they're gonna. I mean, I guess what they say is like it just branches off into another dimension, but I don't know if that's necessarily like whatever, right? But I think that's what they're gonna end up going for with to say that Unica can stay, because I was thinking like, yeah, they're either gonna like get to Axel and have him like reset the timeline and prevent this from happening, or they're gonna fix this and Unica's gonna disappear and she's gonna either say that bye, or she's gonna say, "I'll see you when I'm born." But I was so glad. I was so glad they didn't do that, because I would much rather have them just stick with Unica and not care about this. But I think what they're gonna go with is the stuff that happened. It happened. It's just in another dimension. But since she came from the future, but that was the future of another dimension. But those events happened. So her like whatever. So I think that's where they're gonna go with. They're gonna go with like it happened. It doesn't matter what happens in this timeline because it's already diverting. Because I feel like they said that. There's a scene where everyone's fighting against Nerval. You have like Jacko and all this stuff. They show Axel like running around doing stuff, and I think he says something along the lines of like, "Hey, I'm here. That must mean we fixed everything," or something. He said something very like straightforward. It was like very like blinking and you missed it sentence, which I think is kind of like a cop out. I think they could have just done a little bit more to elaborate on that a little bit, but whatever. I think that's kind of their explanation, is like, we this is solved. Okay, Unica can stay and it forever now, whatever. But I liked that. So this is a gripe I have for a lot of these kind of tropes. I understand why this happens. So it's not like, oh, it's terrible, it's stupid. But I don't like when you have like Nerval, for example, that was pretending to be Unica's dad, and I don't like. I understand why Unica would call him dad, father, whatever. But it's like, hey, this guy's a piece of shit. Like, you don't have to like keep calling him that. Like, but I understand that. I'm not saying like, oh, yeah, it's stupid. Like, I understand like there is like, you spend enough time with someone. It's not an easy thing to like kind of like not look at, right? But I was just like, I just wanted her to find her place with the Kisuke family at least, or at least find her place, here. And she did. Like, the like Dizzy like hugged her at the end, so you have this like nice like sweet moment, which I liked. And then it ends with her wanting to kind of wander around and find herself instead of just like staying, with them. Like she's like, like look, you guys are great, but I kind of I need to do this for myself. I need to find my own path, basically, which is kind of the core theme of Guilty Gear. Like every character's finding their own path and all this other stuff. So I like that. That's kind of where it led to her, and that's where it ends. It was a good ending. It was a good ending for the anime. And I wouldn't say it stuck the landing. I don't think it, like, not by any means it was a perfect ending. And again, I wouldn't say that this anime was great. I do think it should have been longer. I wish it was a little bit longer. The exposition could have been cut a little bit. But I do also appreciate that they tried to utilize more of the character's movesets a little bit. Mostly Jacko. Like, when I was watching the Strive storyline, it's like, man, all she does is kick and, like, punch. Mostly kick. And then you see Dopros for a second to save Chip from falling. Or no, Anji. I think it was Anji. Anji fell off a cliff and she used Dopros to, like, catch him. And it's like, I wish we saw her use the servants more, because I've always been curious about the servants. I don't know if the servants are sentient beings that she makes, or these are just like puppets, right? I don't know. I do like that she used the servants in the anime more, so I like that they use that in this anime, and they also showed Dopros a few times. So I like that they used their movesets a little bit more in this. I also think that there was also like a little in joke with Soul just throwing out like throws randomly, a wild throw a little bit, whatever, because that's kind of how Soul bad guys play online. But whatever, at the same time, like, Soul bad guy is a scientist. He's not a born fighter, but it's fine. So I like that. I like some of the ideas and attempts that were made. I do think that overall it's a very honest show that tried, this also ran the risk of, like, we gotta please the fans, parade all the fan references in, yeah, do that. And it's like, that's what I thought with, like, Mike and Johnny were gonna be. And I think to some extent people were thinking that with Bridget, but I think it didn't do that a lot, and it did it where it needed to be, and this and that. Like, it, I do think it was overall fine. I like the split screen stuff that they did as well. I do think a 7 out of 10 is a good review for it, a good score for it, because there wasn't anything that was like, oh, this is terrible, fuck this. Like, it wasn't like the Devil May Cry anime where I only had one episode that I liked and then the rest was all trash. This was, like, at least consistently entertaining. Like, I was still kind of tuning in every week, and there was still something to think about. There were some plot lines that I do think that were kind of dropped, but I think that's fine. I mean, again, it's an 8-episode run, and arguably you could even argue that, hey, this might be stuff that they can tie into future stuff, because the thing I was going with Strive, which I thought was fine with this anime, a lot of people were writing this anime off as an epilogue type story. I get that, but I don't think it was. I mean, it could have been that, but I think but I was also thinking this could just be something to set up the next game. Like, if they do a next game, this could be the main story to tie into that. And we have already people discussing that Unika is already being, like, kind of propped up as, like, the next main character for the game, which that could be the case. But the other thing I do kind of, it's unclear, because they establish that she's there within the game. Like, Strive's arcade story really does drive the point home that, no, she's here. Like, she's working with the US now. She's being mentored by Giovanna. Like, she's there. But they could always just not include her. Like, will she be in the base roster for the next Guilty Gear game? I don't know. At least I would assume she's gonna be DLC for the next game if she's gonna return. I don't know if she'll be in the base roster. I hope she would be, because I like the character, to be honest. I was playing her, and it's like, she's a great character, but it's hard to say, because there's a lot of Guilty Gear characters that are just left to the wayside. Like, Zappa isn't dead, and he has not been in the games at all. He's just been in the story. I mean, you could argue, well, he doesn't have that sickness he had in, like, in XX anymore. He's gone. But you can find other ways to incorporate him in gameplay. That's not my decision. I'm not the developer, but uh, uh, I don't know if they're gonna really stick with Unica, and that is the one thing I love her. I loved her story. I love her character. I love her arc. Uh, and even in the arcade story, I love that there's a few dialogue options depending on how well you do. I don't do well in the arcade story, so I never get the true ending. I get the other endings, but the ones I've seen, I do like I like the bickering that Sin and Unica have over who's the oldest. Like Sin is technically the oldest because he was born first and she was born after him, so obviously, but at the same time, she came from the future. So she's older in age, but just not chronologically. But I love that they bicker over who's the eldest. Between them. I love that kind of bickering between them. So they play off well with each other. So they do that in the arcade story, but I just love that like she still feels that she wants to atone for what she has done in the anime. Again, like if the anime was longer, they could have done more of showing like of just how bad she did. Because so far all she did was like she broke into she crashed a wedding to try to kill Kai and Dizzy, but that was like thwarted. She tried to steal a nuclear code or whatever that President Vernon had. She copied it, so I mean that's it. I mean, she had a confrontation with Sin, but that was just kind of like that was just something that they both did. Whatever. But but you knew what where why she feels that way, obviously. So I do like that she in the arcade story she's like I don't know, a lot of people still see me as that person, and I don't want to I'm not that person anymore, and I don't want people to know that, but you don't see that, like I don't know like what to do. And it seems like, who cares about these strangers? Like I know the work you're putting in. Like you don't need to please these people. Like these people will they may never care. Like all you should think about is what you see yourself as. Like you don't need to think about what other people see you as. So I like, and then he's like, well, but he's like, well, is he like, I know. Sorry if I'm like being like if I'm being too much or whatever, but it's just I know the work you've been putting into it, and it's like that's all I've been trying to say, and this and that. So I like that there is at least some kind of drama with that, and I like that. I always love arcs like that because uh, it's it's just interesting to see how people like go through that self doubt and that conflict. So it's a cool little conflict to have for the character. Uh, so there's that. Then there's what was the other dialogue that I saw? I can't think of it. But anyways, I like the overall arc that they're going with Unica, which is why I hope they don't just abandon her, because there is enough to do with her. Like it's not like, oh well, we've done all we can do, and that's why I think like you don't necessarily need to go back to well, we solved Happy Chaos, problem averted. Like I do think that like the one thing that I kind of got from the anime that it kind of talks about is there will always be people seeking power and trying to seek things to for themselves, and that's an ever ongoing thing. Like people naturally feel like, oh, I want this, I want that. So I do think, and again, this is a world with magic, gears. Like I do think that there could be more to do with the story. Uh, Now what is not, I don't know, but I think that there's still potential in Guilty Gear to keep it going. I don't, because some people are saying that, oh, they could reboot it, which I guess they could. The thing is, I don't know how true it is that I just been hearing rumors that Daisuke is gonna retire soon, so maybe that's why people are talking about them rebooting it. But I do think that a new face could continue it. I just think it depends on how it's done, and like, is this gonna be a person that Daisuke is gonna be like, oh yeah, this guy's cool, have him do it, or it's gonna be like some guy who is just an arc system works that is just a CEO guy. It's like I know I own the property. Oh my god, shut up. Fucking fuck off. Anyways, anyways, uh, uh, oh my god, dude. Yeah, if it's some CEO that's like, I know I own the property of Guilty Gear, we'll just have this other random guy handle Guilty Gear. It's like then it's like okay, maybe it should be rebooted at that point. But if it's someone that like Daisuke like entrusts, hey, that's fine. I'm all for that. Like guess or someone that worked on it, right? Like I would much rather have someone that worked on it continue to work on it than like, hey, this guy who doesn't know what Guilty Gear is working on Guilty Gear. Like, I would much rather have someone that at least worked on it on some level. Like, I mean, I'm also concerned because I think even Naoki said he's also gonna retire, which is, I mean, Naoki is a great singer. I don't want him to go anywhere. I love all his songs he has made for this game, but yeah, I don't know where it's gonna go or whatever. If they rebooted I wouldn't say that's a terrible thing, but I also think that there's there's nothing wrong with continuing it. Like I think there's you could find things to do with this. But there's enough characters to kind of flesh and to go into with like Unika, Giovanna, like even Giovanna. There's not much with that character right now. Like oh, she grew up in the woods, I think, or something, and she has this beast with her, or whatever. Like, okay, like you're not gonna do anything with that. Like that, she's a done character. Like no, you can find more stuff to do with her. Same with Gold Lewis. Like there's all these characters that you could kind of continue to build on. So I don't think like uh. I think Soul Bad Guy is basically done. Like, there's really nothing going on with him because he's no longer the flame of corruption. Uh, Jack, I think you could kind of go more with that. There's still stuff that you could kind of delve into. Like, they still say that Arya is still like, I think she's in the backyard. I don't remember where is Arya. I know Arya was like she was put into justice for a bit, but when in Strive like Soul is like clearly Arya does not want to come back. Like it's like okay, so where is she? What if she does want to come back? Like at some point like Arya's gonna change her mind, right? Like, is Arya, like, set to be where she is? Like, these things can always change. Or what if someone else wants Arya to come back? Like, who knows? So there's other options. But I do want to talk about Unica a little bit in Strive and my thoughts on that character. I talked a little bit about arcade, so I think that's fine. The one thing I will say is I always like weird pairings. Like, in Dizzy's arcade story, I love that I don't care much about Dizzy's arcade story that much. I was kind of disappointed with it a little bit. It was too much like, I want to cook food. It's like, oh okay, like you're not gonna talk about like because her gameplay like she shows that she's more like proficient with the gamma ray. Like why not talk about like how she's more comfortable with her power now or whatever. But her arcade boss was ABBA. That's a great. I love that pairing. I love that like Disney is like wants to be friends with ABBA. Like that to me is like, that's cool. That's a cool decision right there. So I love that Disney is like friends with ABBA and they talk about whatever. Like I love that aspect of it. And with Unica, like I mean, I guess it's not as bizarre, but it's like they have Unica like talking with Giovanna, which is fine. So I like that aspect of it. I liked her gameplay. I think she is a very easy character, but I do think that her move list is kind of funny in the sense that just on a cursory glance, you think, oh, she's a little bit complicated. Like she has a stance change, so like that adds a level to it. But the stance change is like really like you don't really have to think about it to do it. Like you could just do it. But she's a very easy character to get into. But I do like that there is at least some kind of like proficiency with it. Like I mean Biken for the longest time, and Biken I kind of got bored with. Like I go back to Biken sometimes. I like some of the changes they've done with her, but I feel like they need to give her a new move. Like it's just all they've done with her is like okay, her Yozanse now bounces the character if it's a cross up. The forward heavy slash also bounces the opponent. The Piri has a new mechanic, a slight new mechanic that is like, does anyone even care about this mechanic that he added? Like, I don't know. Uh, like they made her better, but it's just as a character, it's like once you learned her combos, it's like yeah, I don't know. Like that's why I immediately gravitated to Jacko. I feel like there's more to do with Jacko. Like I played so many Jacko players where it's like there's stuff I still have not mastered that character. Like there's a lot of cool shit with her. Uh, and then it's like that's I gravitate to her, and I kind of feel like and this is a big issue with Strive I think as a whole where it's like I this is I feel where a lot of people want to go back to Exard and older games is that they've got a lot of tools from a lot of characters and I do think that with these later DLCs they've been trying to remedy that. More and more characters have been getting a little bit more interesting toolkits like Asuka. Batman's pretty cool. Slayer. Even Venom to a degree, and then and Dizzy a little bit. The only issue I think with these is just properties and just kind of like how they are in the meta. Like if this one they have normals that need to be buffed in some kids. Like Dizzy's 6-piece sucks ass. Like that does need to change. Like that needs help. But I think overall like when you're looking at characters, I think Unika is a good position where you can understand her entire move list, but you can still kind of like try things and learn stuff. Like I do think that a lot of people are writing off the weapons free super because it's very situational and kind of gimmicky. Where she needs to be in orange health and it can only work if the opponent's landed if the opponent's in the air and you hit it. It's not going to do what it wants to do. You're not going to launch the character into like the sky and do this weird combo stuff that you need. And you also need another 50% tension to do another thing on top of that. Like it's a borderline gimmicky super, but I do kind of feel like we're going to see like down the line the true utility of that super. I don't think anyone knows what the super is. It's just on the surface when you're looking at it like, yeah, how am I going to use this? And it's easy to interrupt. Like I've seen people that are like, yeah, I did this and a guy bunked me on the head and it stopped the super. And it's like, yeah, I don't know how you're gonna like pull it off. I do think at the same time I do think it's gonna get buffed. I think like Elfelt's second super, the I don't know what it was called, the one where she like puts like a it's like a grenade vest on the opponent. They made that into a grapple and they changed it to a strike move where now it's like, hey, if you're in range, it's just gonna hit. It's not the Alpha does not need to worry about grapple requirements anymore. And that made that super way better. Like I've seen the Alphas use it way more, and it's far more menacing than it was before. So I do kind of feel this will get buffed in a similar way like that, and we'll see what happens. Because the other aspect of it is that once you land it, it's completely unburstable, and you can do a little aerial combo and end it with a big finisher if you have enough tension. But right now, it's like, yeah, nobody's gonna be using the super. The first super, the Mega Death Buster, is far more useful than the second super. So, and I feel it's the same thing with Dizzy's Wings of Light. Everyone was like, they thought that super was it's not even a super. It's a special. That it was either going to be overpowered and ridiculous, or it was going to be completely useless. And it's actually somewhere in between, where it's like it actually uses a pressure mechanic where you're like, oh, I need to interrupt this, but it's like it's a move that like kind of like you need to earn it for 10 seconds or whatever to really get it. But yeah, I think we're really not gonna know the true scope of Wings of Light of weapons free until like later on in this game's lifespan. So I'm curious. I've been enjoying that character. I think she's insanely fun. Like, but she was exactly what I expected. I knew she was gonna be like a sole bad guy type. She had the weapon and everything. I knew she was gonna be like a mix of like rushdown and projectile game. Her projectile's not that great, but it's good enough to like if the opponent's farther away, it's like okay, I can because her projectile has the best priority in the game. Like it beats every projectile except for super. That is crazy. But I will say it trades in some cases. It trades with Biken's gun super, but it's such a good super. It's such a good projectile. I do love the character. She's so fun to play, and I love like trying to learn her good combos. She's a great character. My other complaint I have with this character, completely superficial complaint, but I do not like characters that fucking love training. I hate when you have win quotes where it's like, oh, I trained pretty good today. Oh, I training is great. Oh, I'm training. I'm still learning. Like I don't need to hear this, and I hate like the mirror match. I hate like you're a good test sub. You're a good like training partner. And it's like, oh, let's find those weak points. Like why not have interpersonal dialogue? Like the only character she has like the dialogue she has the best with are like obviously Dizzy, Kai, Sin, and Bridget. Man, like they really hammer home that these two are like a couple. Like it's like yeah, they're gonna have dinner after this. Oh, they're gonna be fucking after this. It's like okay, yeah, cool. I mean, I like the pairing. It's a good couple. Hey, nothing wrong with that. But uh, it's just funny that these are the only meaningful intros that are like cool. But Giovanna gets like the funny ones where it's like Giovanna's like, oh, I'm gonna hunt for guys, and she's like, oh, I'll whatever. I like some of that kind of stuff, but I just don't like that she always goes to training. Like, I don't like that. The sooner we get over it, the better. Like, just have her interact with other stuff, like whatever. But I'm surprised she doesn't interact with like Biken, Johnny, or anyone else. Like, does she have any intro dialogue with Jacko and Soul? I don't even know. But I think that there should be more. I do like though that she kind of looks up to Kai. I do like that she kind of thinks that Kai is kind of cool and she wants to be more like him and she wants to like prove to him that she's just as cool or whatever. Like I do like that aspect of Unica as well. But I also think that I do hope that they do kind of like focus more on like have her like Soul. Like have her be like into like science or like tech shit. Like because all Soul does is like tweak his like his weapon, his bike, and all this stuff. Her sword is a gun, sword, and a bike. And it's like the coolest thing to do with a weapon like that is have her like bond with Soul over like tweaking it. That would be so cool. Like just do that. That's great. So that's my general thoughts on the anime, the character, and even in a way Strive right now. A lot of people don't like season 4 of Strive because they think that a lot of the balances is goofy, gonzo nonsense, but I don't care. I'm still enjoying the game as it is. I don't fucking care. Like I'm not a very technical guy anyway, so it's just like I'll just play whatever. Why not? If I could get a win, if I get that's all I care about. If I win or have fun. I also like Unica's theme. Unica's theme is the best theme. Like, dude, I can't stop listening to Unica's theme. Carpe Diem is so good. It's such a good song. You cannot convince me otherwise. If you don't like that song, I don't know what to tell you. Then get help. It's a great song. I will say this other. I'll end on a theory about these balance patches because people are like, "There's no balance patch with Unica." I think Arxis is gonna save these balance patches either for the end and beginning of a new season or just for the beginning of the next season. I think that's what they want to do. They want to have a whole season where it's this massive balance, and then that's where you're learning for the rest of the season. I think that's what they're going for, and they may do some like minor tweaks in between, but I think they're doing massive balance updates for the beginning of each season, because I think because I feel they want you to learn these massive tweaks for the entirety of a season, and not like, okay, you learned it for like a couple of months, learn this new meta, learn the next new meta or whatever after a few characters. Like, I think they just want you to learn it for that season. But that's just me. That's my theory as to why these balance updates are not coming out super regularly as they were in the first 3 seasons. I think they want to do something a little bit different. They have not conveyed that, so there's really no evidence to my theory. But I just think that's what's going on here, because you know it is weird that we got that the only massive update we got was at the beginning of season 4, and since then we have the only update we got since then was like minor tweaks, and then I think they fixed also that people hate about what they did to Potemkin. I'm just gonna say it, Potemkin people are babies. That character is annoying to fucking fight. Like, it's just they have a good anti-air. Like, and then they're like, well, what am I supposed to do at the beginning of the round? I got nothing. It's like, dude, you have enough. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm ignorant on Potemkin gameplay, but I've lost to enough of them where I'm like, no, they have enough. They have enough fucking nonsense in their little corner. They have it too good. Same with Slayer. You know, people are trying to downplay Slayer now. They're all, he's not top tier anymore. Bullshit. But you know, maybe a little bit, but nah. He's not fucking. Maybe he's not S tier, but people are saying he's C tier now. No, he's A tier at least. No way is he C. That's bullshit. That's a lie. If you see that, they're lying to you. But anyways, that is it for my video. That is it for this long ass video. Thank you for watching. What did you think of the Guilty Gear anime? Was it bad? Was it great? Was it in the middle? I think it's gonna be in the middle. I think a lot of people are landing on it anyway. So I don't think it's a very hot take to be like, oh, I think it's a 7 out of 10. But that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.